Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Today we'll discuss an interesting discussion, shilas, that are brought in the Svarim, the Sifrei Shilas Teshuvos of today, of our times, especially during this summer season when people allow themselves to do different things due to the weather that perhaps they wouldn't do during the winter time. They do spazieren, tours, activities, etc. Now, I want to introduce this with a story I read from Rabbi Zalman Auerbach, that somebody once came over to him and said, "How you talking? The people go on trips during the summer times. They take the children to trips when it seems to be a question of bittul Torah." And it looks like it was the bus driver that was asked to take the kids on the trip that complained that it's bittul Torah for him, it's bittul Torah for the children. And Rabbi Zalman Auerbach obviously made away with this and said this is an important thing for the kids to go on trips. And he said when he was growing up as a youngster, he still remembers his Melamed taking him on trips. But then he said a very interesting line. And he responded and said, and a person reading a newspaper, that's not a tiyul. That's also a trip. And that you allow yourself to do. So why, as a comfort zone, as a mode of relaxing. So obviously for children to go on trips or relaxing is something that could only be ma'oder and increase your future chayis in Avodas Hashem. So when it comes to choosing what to do and how to relax, in the summer you find many people do many different types of things. Now obviously the dangerous things fall into a category of what's considered dangerous, what's not considered dangerous. That's a parsha for itself. But let's take a simple activity that you see, it's a common thing that people do in America, and let's talk a kapanim bekitzer what the Torah view would be on it. And that is fishing, hunting. Hunting is extreme. Hunting is we know that in the Torah, for example, the people who are negative people, Esav is referred as the Ish Yedei Tzayid. Now, the Halacha, if you want to hunt for a purpose, there's reason and there's Mekaris and Shulchan Aruch where you're allowed to, but that's very aggressive act of Achzarius, so that's a ball game for itself. Let's talk about relaxing and going fishing. Now, going fishing, here is a question of Tsar Balachayim, the fish you're going to catch, what's the purpose of what you're doing, and what are you going to use as bait? Could you use live bait when live bait is Tsar Balachayim for those worms or whatever you use to catch the fish? Now, this is not a new discussion. This is already mentioned in the Sifrei Shilas Teshuvos from years ago, and we'll touch upon some of them. The Rabbi Yehuda, about 250 years ago or more, in Chelik Beis, in Shilas Teshuvos Chelik Beis, Yeridea Simin Yud, establishes a interesting rule concerning the klal of Tsar Balachayim. We talk a lot about Tsar Balachayim, and we have to be worried and compassionate to make sure that the animals, even the animals, don't suffer too much. So he says like this. First of all, everything in the world was created l'tzorech ha'adam. So if what you are doing, fishing or hunting or whatever that is, whatever activity, is for you to gain some personal gain, eating or using the skin, the leather, whatever it is, then Tsar Balachayim is mutter, becomes mutter in such a form. Especially, says the Rabbi Yehuda, that Tsar Balachayim means that you're causing the animal suffering while it's still alive. While it's alive and it's going to walk around having tsar. But if you're doing something and it's going to cause the animal to die, then there won't be any more issue of Tsar Balachayim. And that's where the rule of Tsar Balachayim does not apply anymore. However, says the Mefarshim say, that the act of hunting, this type of behavior is a cruel act, because Yidden naturally, betivam, have the nature of Rachmanis, There's a pasuk in Devarim where the Torah says, "V'nasan lecha rachamim v'richamcha v'hirbecha." A Yid is full of rachmanis, and it's brought a story that there was a group of people who were going planning a hunting trip, and they went to the Rav to promote it or whatever, and the Rav said, "I'm sorry, I can't promote an act that's a midah of achzorius. I'm not going to tell you it's asur al pidin, but I definitely can't promote it and give a hechsher for it." So there is the act, and then there is the gain that you might have from it. So hunting l'shem just to have a trophy on the wall is definitely not a good thing to do. Is it asur completely al pidin? It's not black and white asur. It's not completely asur. Fishing has the benefit that you are, from one hand, relaxing, but if you're fishing and your intention is that the fish you're going to catch you're going to use for the grill, for the barbecue, for that supper, or you're going to keep it for Shabbos, so you're fishing for your purpose, l'tzairach adam, and that's something which is not a problem whatsoever. To use the bait, to use live bait, actually in the Svarim of today, they say it's best, and Rabbi Feinstein talks about this, it's best not to use live bait. If you could use bait, something like bread or something which is not living, you minimize the tsar balachayim. And even if you're going to use a creature, a worm or anything like that, it's best if you kill it first, again, to minimize the tsar balachayim. And another basic difference there is between fishing and hunting is hunting, as I mentioned before, the cruelty is much greater, and that's why we find that shchita applies by animals, by fish. Some say because they don't respond as badly as animals respond to tsar, so the Torah didn't say there's a din of shchita. It's ba'asifa, it becomes kosher, as long as it's the kosher fish. But by fish, if you're lucky enough to catch a kosher fish, you're going to eat it. When you're going hunting for an animal, even if the animal is kosher, chances are that the animal is not going to be eaten even after you capture it. Why? Because if you're going to shoot it, first of all, it's not proper shchita. If you're going to cause it a damage, it could be a damage in the way that's going to become an avela, a treifa. So you're just doing it for the sake of fun. Sake of fun is not a Yiddish thing. This cruelty act. So to summarize this again, if a Yid wants to relax and go out on the boat fishing, best would be if his hope is that if he catches a fish, he'll use a bait that's with minimal amount of suffering, either food or a worm or anything like that that's not alive anymore. And the fish that he catches, if his intention is to want to eat it, so he minimizes any issue of tsar balachayim. Yeshikayach, and please join us again next week.